Looks great.
Perfect. All right. All right, I am so excited. Welcome to the Goal Rescue webinar, where we're going to reclaim your focus and achieve your 2025 vision. So what you can expect today is for my slides to not work right. We're going to start off talking about why you're not getting the results you wanted. And you might remember back in January, you were super excited about those goals and to write them down, maybe nervous anticipation. Maybe you wrote some goals that were bigger than what you were like sure that you were going to get to be able to do. And here we are mid-April, and maybe the progress hasn't gone the way you thought that it would. Maybe the things that you thought would work haven't worked the way you thought that they would, or maybe you've just gotten so busy that you really haven't even had time to think about it. And I just want to say, you are in the right place at the right time. It's not your fault. It happens to a lot of people. And one of the reasons is the world that we live in. My goodness, every time we turn on the news, there's an up, there's a down, there's a twist, there's a turn, and it gets us distracted from our goals. And we have this reactive busyness, right? Especially in our businesses, that we're busy doing the do, and we don't take the time, I like to say, to get off the dance floor and get up on the balcony of our businesses that overlooks the dance floor, where you can see so differently. Your perspective changes, right? So I'm actually going to hold the space for you to do that today while we're together. So if you don't already have pen and paper or crayon and a napkin, doesn't have to be fancy, I'm going to encourage you to grab that, because we're going to workshop together. This is going to be a time for you to work on you and for what's important to you. And then the other reason that you're not getting the results that you want is in the category of self-sabotage. And so we're going to talk more in depth, but I just want to invite you, like, how often do you listen to the thoughts that are going through your head? Very often we talk ourselves out of really beautiful ideas. We decide that something's not going to work. We might do it anyway. The action and the activity might be there, but the intention is off balance. And so we're going to work on adjusting some of that together today too. So you're in for it. So I'm introducing to you the rescue framework. Who doesn't love an acronym? So this is what we're going to walk through together today. We're going to take a reality check on where we've been and where we are. Then we're going to energize those goals. Then we're going to schedule it, because if it lives on your calendar, it'll get done. Then we're going to undertake. We're going to make a plan for doing the do, and give you some tools for evaluating what's working, what went well, what isn't. So here we go. Step one is reality check. So if you can have your goals in front of you, if you want to jot down a summary at the top of your piece of paper, I want you to take a look at your goals from January. And now I want you to notice the thoughts that you're thinking. Maybe you're barely thinking them. They're like the quiet thoughts that you're not really present to. How are you feeling when you look at those goals? I know for me, often in the past, when I would look at goals, I would feel some shame, because I felt like I hadn't done enough, which is a super tough word. Or maybe you're feeling a little guilt. And I just want you to know those emotions are important to notice, and they're not serving you. So I'm going to invite you, if you're in a space where you can take a closed eye exercise, we're going to do this together, because I want you to shift from those negative emotions into positive emotions for the work that we're going to do together today. So again, if you're in a safe place, I invite you to close your eyes. Let your feet rest on the floor. Solidly feel your feet on the floor, your feet in your shoes, your feet in your socks. Just bring all of your mental awareness and attention to the feeling of whatever your feet are resting on. Notice how they are supported, held. And then notice your seat in your seat. Are you clenching any muscles? Can you let those go? And now bring your awareness to your breath without changing your breath cycle, just noticing the feeling of air as it enters your nostrils and the feeling of air as it exits your nostrils. Letting go of any thoughts that you're having and simply noticing your breath. Okay, when you're ready, you can blink your eyes open. Now I want you to notice the feelings, the emotions, the sensations in your body. Are they different now from when we started or when you first looked at your goals? I hope they are. And so that is a free tool, right? You have your breath, you have your feet with you everywhere that you go. And I invite you every time that you notice those negative emotions that you just take a break, take a breath, and shift. Because working out of your wisdom, I call it your sage brain, is where all of your intelligence is, your best ideas come from, your most inspired action. Okay, so now let's look at those goals again. And again, if you look at those goals and some of those negative emotions and feelings come up, do 3 more breaths. You can just keep doing that and shift. So often when we look at our goals, our brain has been trained to focus on the gap. What didn't happen? I want to invite you today in our reality check to look at the gain. So some deeper questions, you can journal these for yourself, you can do stick figures, but I really invite you to go through this thought process, even though you're not processing it out loud with me. What has happened well since January? What has moved forward? And if that's a 0 for you, then I want you to move the window bigger and broader. How are you different? Better? What actions have you taken in the last year that you can celebrate for yourself, that you can have gratitude for? The fact that you made it to this day is a testimony to the fact that you are an overcomer and you are a survivor. You have shown up the last 365 days because you got out of bed today. So good job. There's always a gain. And so notice when your brain is focusing on the gap, because it's, yes, we need to be realistic, but also you've done far more than what you haven't done. And that's what's going to serve you really well because you're giving yourself social proof of, look, I can do this. I am doing this. Now, I want to invite you to list at least 3 things that you have done to move you forward. Again, your brain's going to want to say, these are the things I haven't done. These are the goals I haven't met. This is the progress I haven't made yet. Okay. And deep breath, feet in your shoes. And what are at least 3 things you've done to move you forward? Now, as you look at those goals, I want you to ask yourself, why is it still important for me to move toward these goals? So you can just start journaling or writing. I'm going to ask that same question a couple different ways for you to reflect on. Who needs you to move toward these goals? Who else will it impact in addition to you? Maybe that's your ideal client. Maybe that's someone that lives under your roof. Asked differently, what is the meaning behind why these goals were important and continue to be important to you? How will your life be different? What is the impact on the world? And then the last piece of the reality check I want to invite you to think about is what needs to change. We are not the same person we were back in January. The world is not the same world that we had in January. So honestly, give yourself the creativity and the curiosity and the freedom to shift and change anything that maybe needs to shift and change. I know I have something on my goals that I wrote out and I was like, yeah, I actually don't want to do that anymore. And that's totally okay. All right, so hopefully you're getting some ideas, some things jotted down, getting some space. A few more questions. What has gotten in the way of you working on these goals in the way that you thought that you would? Not for guilt and shame, but for a reality check. Be honest with yourself. What's gotten in the way? Because when you notice the obstacles in your path, then you can do something about them, right? I was telling a client earlier this week, a clogged drain never gets better by ignoring it. So we get to name those obstacles so that we can get curious about what tools we need, what help we need, what do we need to learn so that we can move those out of the way. Ask differently, what was outside of your control? There's a lot of things that are outside of your control. And when we shift into energizing these goals, we're going to talk about breaking them down into the things that are inside of your control. But just for now, just notice what was outside my control. And then what have you learned or discovered about yourself or the situation since January? Okay, hopefully you've got a few things down. You can always take screenshots of these slides if you're a processor and you want to come back and do this slower, or if you're watching the replay, just know that you can hit pause at any time and give yourself more processing and writing and reflection time. Okay, let's shift into energize. We did talk about this a little bit, but why do your goals matter to you? What fires you up and gets you inspired about moving toward that goal? Because when your why is big enough, the how to handles itself. So yes, it's important to put your goals in front of you. Yes, it's important to have a vision board. I host a vision board workshop every year. And yet the why to, when it's big enough, your creative brain is going to find the pathway forward just by you planting that seed there. So I hope that you have, I want your why to like give you visceral feelings in your body. I want it to light you up, inspire you. A lot of people say the why that makes you cry, right? That's what's going to get you moving. And then as we energize these goals, I would love for you to read over them and ask yourself, is this broken down into the actionable step that is inside my control? Okay, let me give you an example. I want to add 5 new customers or clients, right? That's often a goal in our businesses. Well, guess what? That requires someone else's yes in order for you to reach that goal. So that lets me know that goal isn't broken down far enough. So what is the actionable step that I can take that will make it more likely for me to add more clients, but is inside of my control, right? So for me, that is reaching out to a certain number of people, inviting a certain number of people to join me for a discovery session so that they can learn what it looks like to work with me. Are you kind of getting some ideas of how that could be? If not, if you're stuck, type it in the chat because we're going to have Q&A time at the end and we can come back to that. Okay, so the next letter in our rescue framework is schedule. We're not going to spend a lot of time here because I actually have a free resource for you. So I'd love for you to take a screenshot of this. You can always text or email me later and say, hey, I want that thing. But it's called a priority planner. It's actually from my mentor, and it was life-changing to me when I started using this. So the summary is, so you know what the tool is and if you want it, it invites you once a week to sit down and write out the different categories of your life, the different hats that you wear. So for me, I run a household, I run 2 businesses, I have volunteer roles, and then there's also my self-care. Those are my categories. And so I write down everything that needs to be done that week. And then the next step that makes this so powerful is you get to take that priority plan and time block it into your life. Because if it lives on your calendar, it's going to get done. If it doesn't live on your calendar, it's just a good idea. It's a dream or an aspiration. And then I would invite you to schedule at least 1 hour per day for your A activity. As business owners, that's your income producing activity. And if you don't know what your income producing activity, I would love to take a one-on-one coaching session and help you get clarity about that. Okay, the next letter in our rescue framework is undertake. I call this doing the do. And one of the things that we get to do in this is quiet the saboteurs. I was always perplexed because I am the person that works harder. You know, when I worked a corporate job, I was the person that worked harder than most of my coworkers. I get more done in a day than most people that I know. And yet I found myself setting goals, making a little bit of progress, but not what I wanted, and getting to rewrite the same goal year after year, to be really frank. And what I found out was it's actually the self-sabotage, the thoughts that are happening between my head that was getting in my way. So what's beautiful is to get to our goals, it isn't necessarily about working harder. It's about getting out of your own way. So I would love for you to take the saboteur quiz to find out what those thoughts are that are getting in your way. You're going to get a PDF that says, these are your top saboteurs. This is what they sound like in your brain. And I know when I read mine, I was like, get out of my head. How did you know that's what was going on? Because here's the thing. We attract what we expect. And so if the saboteurs are saying that didn't work out last time, why do you think it's going to be any different this time? That's the filter that we're going to view our lives through. And what we focus on grows. And so when we focus on the good that is coming to us, all the opportunities that are available, that's what's going to happen. And then the next tool that I'm going to put in your toolbox under undertake, under doing the do, under doing the inspired action that's going to move you towards your goals, I just learned from a Navy SEAL, and they call it DPO, duration, pathway, and outcome. So our brains are dopamine seeking machines. And often our goals are big goals with long duration. How long is it going to take me to get to that goal? The pathway may be unclear for our brain. And also the outcome may be unclear for our brain. I know sometimes we don't work on our goals because we don't really believe, A, that we can get there, that if we do get there, it's going to give us the payoff that we would prefer. And so that lack of belief gets in our way too. So we get to be really clear about these. So what does DPO look like in real life? Well, I'm going to use a running example. I wanted to learn to run a mile. I don't have the body that I can decide that one day and then just go out and run a mile. So I got to work on it. And what I found was the app would say run for 2 minutes. And I'm like, okay. What I learned is if I would shorten the duration, instead of I'm going to run for 2 minutes, I would say I'm going to run to the next sign. And I will decide at the next sign, you know, like street sign might be 100 feet away. I'm going to decide at that next sign whether I'm going to keep running or drop it back to a walk, right? So do you see how we shrunk the duration? I'm just going to get here. And then you do that next thing. I know, people that work with recovery people, they say, I'm just not going to use today. I can't decide whether I'm going to use ever again in my life, but I can decide that I'm just not going to use today. So that's a duration piece. And then the pathway. In the running example, the pathway is super clear, right? From A to B. And then what is the outcome? The outcome is I'm going to celebrate when I get there. Your brain gets that little micro dopamine hit, which then says, well, I did that. What else can I do? Now I can keep going because I did that thing. So I hope that's a tool that's helpful for you too as you work on your goals. Okay, so after you've started doing the do, there's going to be time and opportunity to evaluate. So I want to invite you, because of those dopamine hits, to name 3 wins at the end of each day. I actually have an alarm on my phone that goes off at 8:30 p.m. that says celebrate 3 wins. And I'm going to be transparent and tell you I ignore it most days. And I'm committed to getting better at it because of those micro dopamine hits. This is a beautiful thing. And again, because what you focus on grows. So if you focus on 3 things you did well that day, that's what you're going to get better at. And then weekly, look at your consistency. Consider using something like a habit tracker or just literally putting a smiley face or a dot or something in your daily calendar on the days that you did the thing. And then at the end of each month, take a look at your calendar, take a look at your measurables, and use the evaluation questions and the reality check questions that we did at the front end and say, how did I do? Was that the way I preferred it? What went well? What adjustments do I need to make for next month? What am I grateful for in the past month? We often don't give ourselves that evaluation time. You can set a 5-minute timer and do this once a month. It's about building the habit to get it done. Okay, so I want to tell a story of one of my clients. She had been for several years wanting to sit for a certification in her industry. And she kept delaying it. She would set the goal. She would study once or twice and then go into guilt, shame. I can't do this. I'm not smart enough. Tapes from her childhood about studying and education and her ability to remember things. And the deadline would slip. And then she'd have to start over, right? To the point that she was even paying to sit for this test and then just wouldn't show up because she didn't feel prepared. So she hired me as a coach and we started talking about these things and noticing that, oh yeah, those things that I'm thinking when I sit down to study are actually from something that was spoken over me in the 5th grade that doesn't apply to me in adulthood, right? I'm not that same person I was when I was, in the 5th grade. And so she was able to get herself to a place where she consistently studied and was able to take that test and move her career forward. So that is how coaching works for people. And you could do it too. That's what I know. So, okay, you can do this. You are doing it. And yet those saboteurs are going to come in and they're going to whisper doubt, like you're too busy, or you can't afford to invest in yourself in that way, or that's just the way it is, right? Everybody sets goals and misses them. And that is true. And that is not where your value is. And yet lots of people set goals and move toward them too. And so I just want to put those little saboteur lies in front of you so that you can notice them quicker as you move forward and start implementing something new. Because remember, you are doing this day for the very first time in your life, and give yourself a lot of grace. You wouldn't judge a toddler who's learning to walk for falling down, right? You're going to fall down. Just lovingly pick yourself back up. Change the meaning that you assign to failure. Failure is not final. It's an opportunity to learn and course correct. Okay, so your solution for continued success. Can I tell you the top 2 predictors for you to meet your definition of success, which I would call happiness in relationships? That's my definition of success. So the number 1 predictor of goal achievement is that you have a buddy, that you share your goal with someone, that you have someone that's cheering you on and checking in and is your conversation partner to process the what went well, what didn't. It is a sad reality to me that we just cannot coach ourselves. Even the best coaches in the world will say you can't coach yourself. And the second pro tip for continued success is to stop listening to yourself and to start talking to yourself, right? So you don't have to believe every thought that you think. You can say, oh, hi, I see that thought. that is not true for me. That is not how I want to choose to think about the situation or myself or things like that. So I hope that's helpful to you. I want to say that you are the best investment you will ever make. And so congratulations for carving out the time to rescue your goals, because a lot of people won't. And so you're already ahead of the curve. And I just want to say, as you're investing in yourself, consider coaching as a possibility. What does coaching do? If you've never worked with a coach helps you identify those limiting beliefs that we've talked about today. And more importantly, noticing is only, 10% of the equation. It's actually changing the way that you show up. And so breaking through those limiting beliefs. A coach helps you get clarity on what you want to accomplish and also kind of let go of the things that aren't important. A coach helps you create an action plan to help you reach your goals. I love to say that coaching is the trellis that supports the vine of growth for you. So you do the growing, you're playing the game. The coach is on the sideline saying, what about this play? I think this will work better. And then coaching also helps you explore and uncover the best version of you while creating that tangible progress that's going to give you the dopamine hits, because you are created for a purpose and the world needs the gifts, talents, and abilities that you have. And so let's uncover those and share that out with the world that needs to hear that from you. So if you decided that coaching was a way that you wanted to invest in yourself, I'm just going to say that the encouragement when you ask, $1 million earners, they will tell you that you should invest 10% of your income into yourself as your personal growth investment. So that's a great benchmark of like, am I at a place to invest in a coach? Maybe for a time you're doing free podcasts, reading the books, doing the things that you can do. And yet, just to give you kind of a benchmark, the average cost of coaching in the United States is $300 per session. That's the average. It goes up from there. However, to work with me, I receive $90 for a 45-minute coaching session, because I want to work with people that are in process, that are growing, that are in the trenches, that are making the impact and the change in their circles and in their communities. And because you're already the kind of person that showed up and invested in yourself today, I'm offering everybody that participates in this webinar 10% off. So screenshot this so that you have the coupon survey 10. And here's the QR code. Now take a screenshot. Love for you. That will take you right to my calendar, and you can book that anytime that you want to. Okay, so any questions? Or I would love to hear from you. What did you find most helpful?
I really appreciated